Do you think you can play games with me? Brad growled, clenching his fists until his knuckles cracked. You think your quiet act will work here at Lincoln High? Emily slowly raised her head, and something in her eyes made the crowd hold its breath. A cold gleam, nothing like fear. I'm not playing, Brad. Her voice was astonishingly calm. I was just hoping you wouldn't force me to show who I really am. And who are you exactly? He drawled, mocking her, oblivious to the fact that in 5 minutes he'd be lying on the ground and the whole school would be buzzing about what had happened. Stay tuned for the most interesting part. Don't miss out. Like and subscribe so you don't lose track. It all began on Monday morning at Lincoln High in the small town of Maplewood, Ohio. The mist still clung to the ground when 16-year-old Emily Harris stepped across the threshold of her new school. Her family had just moved from Detroit after her mother took a job at the local hospital, and for Emily, this was the 4th move in the last 3 years. Outwardly, there was nothing remarkable about her. Average height, slender, with chestnut hair pulled into a simple ponytail, dressed in plain jeans and a dull sweatshirt. She tried to blend in, not to stand out, to speak softly when teachers addressed her. But what no one knew could have shocked every person in that school. Emily was the reigning junior state champion of Michigan in mixed martial arts. 4 years of intense training in one of Detroit's best gyms had made her a dangerous opponent, even for grown fighters. Her signature left hook could crack a rib, and her ground grappling technique had amazed her coaches. But at her mother's insistence, they'd agreed to keep it all a secret in this new town. Let's start fresh, sweetheart, her mother had pleaded. You know how people react when they find out about your skills. Let's just be a normal family. Emily agreed, though deep inside something rebelled. In Detroit, people respected her precisely because she never let anyone push her around. But here in Maplewood, she was just the new girl. The trouble started on her first day. During lunch, Emily was sitting alone at a corner table in the cafeteria when a tall, broad-shouldered boy approached her. He had a close-cropped haircut and a cocky gaze. 2 friends followed close behind. One was short and wiry, always squinting, the other taller, with a sly grin and a smug smile. "Hey, new girl," the leader barked as he dropped into the seat opposite her. "I'm Brad Thompson. This is my school, my rules." He gestured to his buddies, Kyle and Jake. Emily looked up from her sandwich. "Nice to meet you. I'm Emily." "Emily," Brad repeated, tasting the name. "Where are you from?" "Detroit." "Detroit?" Kyle laughed. "So you think you're better than us just because you're from the big city?" "I don't think that," Emily said softly, continuing to eat. "But I think you do." Brad leaned in closer. "See, sweetheart, we've got a simple system here. Newcomers need to show respect, especially those from big cities who think they're too cool for us." Emily felt something tighten in her chest. That tone, that arrogance, it was all painfully familiar. But she had promised her mother. "I don't want any trouble," she said, pushing her chair back to stand. "Where do you think you're going?" Jake planted his hand on her shoulder, stopping her. "We're not done talking yet." "What exactly do you want?" Her voice carried a steely note, but the boys didn't notice. "Just a little respect," Brad sneered. "Say, $5 a day for protection. You know, in a new school, all sorts of things can happen to a lonely girl." Emily slowly took in their faces. In Brad's eyes was the predator's certainty that the prey wouldn't fight back. Kyle was smirking, savoring the show. Jake was just waiting for her to break. "I need to think about it," she finally said. "Of course," Brad magnanimously allowed. "You've got until tomorrow." "Oh, and Emily." He leaned closer, his breath hot on her face. "Don't even think about snitching. The teachers here love us. My dad sponsors the football team." When they left, Emily sat for a few more minutes, her fists clenched beneath the table. She could have ended it right then. One precise punch, and Brad would have spent the rest of the day in the nurse's office. But the promise she'd made to her mother held her back. After school, she walked home, her mind racing. $5 a day was $150 a month. over 1,000 for the whole year. And that was just the beginning. She knew boys like Brad. Give in now, and it would only get worse. At home, her mother was already making dinner. Dr. Sarah Harris looked exhausted after her first day at the new job, but she still smiled at her daughter. "How was school, sweetheart?" "It was fine," Emily lied. "Just a normal first day." "Make any friends?" "Too soon to tell." Her mother looked at her carefully. Over the years, they'd learned to read each other without words, and Sarah sensed something wasn't right. "If there are problems, it's okay, Mom. Really." But that night, Emily couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, seeing Brad's face in her mind's eye. His cocky smile, the smug look in his eyes, the tone of his voice. In Detroit, she would have already handled this. Everyone there knew not to mess with Emily Harris, but here, she was just the quiet new girl who didn't want any trouble. The next morning, on Tuesday, things escalated. Emily had barely stepped inside the school when Brad and his friends intercepted her at the stairwell. "Well, have you thought it over?" he asked, getting straight to the point. "I'm not paying you," Emily said firmly. The smile slid from Brad's face. "What did you say?" "I said no." For a few seconds, they stared at each other. Then Brad laughed, but it was a cold, joyless sound. "You know what, sweetheart? I hoped you'd be smart about this," he shrugged. "But if you want to play hero..." What happened next was a waking nightmare for Emily. Brad and his friends seemed to declare open season on her. Between classes, they found ways to make her life miserable. In first period chemistry, Kyle accidentally shoved her, sending all her notes flying. When she bent to pick them up, he stepped on her notebook with his dirty boot. "Oops," he smirked. "Sorry about that." Between second and third periods, Jake slammed her into a wall hard enough to make her shoulder throb with pain. She just clenched her teeth. "Watch where you're going," he barked as he walked off. By lunch, things reached a boiling point. Emily was sitting at the same table as the day before when Brad approached again, this time with half the football team in tow. "Word has it," he announced loudly, making sure everyone nearby heard, "that the new girl doesn't want to respect our traditions, thinks she's too good for our rules." Conversations at neighboring tables hushed. Everyone turned to watch. "Brad, please," Emily said quietly. "I just want to get through school in peace." "And I just want you to understand your place." He leaned down closer to her. "See, when someone ignores my requests, it makes me look bad." He picked up her plate and slowly dumped the contents in her lap. Hot soup soaked her jeans, and vegetable chunks splattered on the floor. "Oh no, what a mess!" Brad feigned concern. The cafeteria erupted in laughter. Someone even started filming it on their phone. Emily sat there, unmoving, feeling the soup seeping through her clothes. Inside her, a storm was brewing, cold and controlled, but no less dangerous. "What are you waiting for?" Brad sneered. "Clean it up." Emily stood up slowly. Soup dripped from her jeans, leaving dark stains on the floor. The laughter around her grew louder, but she didn't hear it. She was staring at Brad. "You just made a big mistake," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it sliced through the noise like a blade. "And what are you going to do about it?" he laughed. "Run to the principal? Call your mommy?" Emily didn't answer. She just grabbed her backpack and walked out of the cafeteria, leaving behind puddles of soup and peals of laughter. In the bathroom, she tried to scrub the stains out, but it was no use. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the rage she was barely holding back. 4 years of training had taught her to channel her aggression, to use it wisely, but today, that control was slipping. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number of her old coach back in Detroit. "Master Johnson, this is Emily Harris." "Emily, how's the new school?" "Not so great. I've got a problem with some local bullies." There was a pause on the line. Master Johnson had known Emily since she first walked into the gym as a scrawny 12-year-old desperate to protect herself from the high schoolers who'd once beaten her up. "What's going on?" Emily gave him a short rundown of the situation. When she finished, he sighed. Listen to me carefully, girl. I know your mom wanted you to keep your skills hidden, and that's smart. But sometimes, secrets become dangerous. What do you mean? If you keep letting them push you, they'll only get worse. Boys like that, only strength stops them. But remember, if you decide to act, do it smart. Not at school, not in front of witnesses, and don't cause any real harm. I remember your lessons. Good. And Emily, no matter what, you have the right to defend yourself. The rest of the day, Emily spent deep in thought. By the end of classes, she'd made up her mind. She wasn't going to take it anymore. After school, she lingered in the library pretending to do homework. In truth, she was waiting for most of the students to leave. She needed to talk to Brad alone. Around 4 in the afternoon, she stepped out of the building. The parking lot was almost deserted, with only a few teachers and upperclassmen's cars remaining. She knew Brad usually stayed late for football practice. Emily walked to the athletic building and peered through the window into the gym. Practice had just ended, and the players were heading to the locker rooms. She waited another half hour until she saw Brad emerge from the building alone. His friends had already left. "Brad!" she called. He turned, a smirk spreading across his face when he saw her. "Well, look who's here. Soup Girl's back for seconds." Emily stepped closer. They were alone in the empty parking lot. "I need to talk to you." "About what?" Brad crossed his arms, still radiating confidence. After all, what could this skinny girl possibly do to him? "About what happened today in the cafeteria." "What about it? I thought it was pretty funny." "For you, maybe, not for me?" Brad stepped forward, towering over her. At nearly 6'3", he loomed above Emily's 5'2" frame. "Listen up, little girl. I tried to be nice to you, gave you a simple choice. Pay up and live in peace. But you wanted to play hero. Now, it's going to be the hard way." "The hard way? Tomorrow the whole school's going to know you're just another loser from Detroit. I'll tell everyone how you sat there in your own soup, too scared to move. I'll post pictures online. #SoupGirl. It'll be perfect." There was a flicker in Emily's eyes, something Brad noticed, but misread. "You're scared? Too late, sweetheart. Should have thought of that before," he sneered. "You know, Brad," Emily said, in a calm, almost gentle voice, "I have a proposition." "A proposition? You're in no position to be offering anything?" "One-on-one, right here, right now. If you win, I'll pay you not $5 a day, but 10. I'll do whatever you say." Brad raised an eyebrow, surprised. "And if you win?" "You leave me alone, forever, and you apologize in front of the whole school for what happened today." Brad burst out laughing. "Are you serious? You want to fight me?" "I want to end this, once and for all. Little girl, I've been playing football since I was 10. My coach is a former NFL player. I can bench 300 pounds, and you—" He looked her up and down with a sneer. "You look like a stiff breeze could blow you away. Then you've got nothing to be afraid of." Something in her tone made Brad look at her more closely. Emily stood there perfectly calm, her arms hanging loosely at her sides, but there was a quiet confidence in her posture that he hadn't seen before. "All right," he finally said, "but no rules. Anything goes." "Anything goes," she agreed. They stepped to the center of the parking lot. The asphalt was clean, no cars around, a perfect spot for a fight. Brad stripped off his hoodie, revealing a muscular torso. Years in the gym had paid off. Broad shoulders, a thick chest, powerful arms. He knew he looked intimidating. Emily only took off her jacket, standing in a plain t-shirt. Next to Brad, she looked even more delicate. "Last chance to back out," he offered with a smirk. "Thanks, but no. Your funeral." Brad didn't waste time. He lunged forward, aiming to knock her down with the first punch. His fist flew straight at her face with enough force to break her nose. What happened next shattered his entire sense of reality. Emily didn't even try to dodge. Instead, she shifted a half step to the side, letting the punch sail past her head. At the same time, she brought up her right forearm to deflect the blow with perfect precision. The movement was so fast, so exact, Brad didn't have time to register it. And then Emily countered. Her left hand shot forward like a piston, landing squarely in his solar plexus. The blow was short, but it carried a terrifying power. 4 years of training, thousands of hours honing her technique, all of it focused into that one strike. Emily's fist sank into Brad's gut just below his ribcage. He doubled over, gasping like a fish out of water. His diaphragm spasmed, his lungs refusing to work. He tried to suck in a breath but couldn't. Panic flooded his eyes as he dropped to his knees. "What? How?" he croaked, still not comprehending what had just happened. Emily stood over him, calm as ever. There was no strain, no sign of effort in her posture. "First rule of fighting," she said softly. "Never underestimate your opponent." Brad tried to rise, but his legs refused to cooperate. That punch to the solar plexus had been delivered with surgical precision, enough to incapacitate, but not to cause real harm. You box?" he managed to whisper. "Not boxing." Emily crouched down so their eyes were level. "Mixed martial arts. 4 years of intensive training. Michigan State junior champion, 23 fights, 21 wins." Brad's eyes widened with horror. "But you know what's the most interesting part?" Emily continued. "I didn't even use 1/10 of my strength. If I had, that punch would have cracked your ribs and hit your spine." She stood and stepped back a few paces. "I moved here hoping to live a normal life. I'm tired of people being scared of me. My mom asked me to hide my skills, and I agreed. I wanted to be just another girl." Brad finally managed to get a breath in and slowly pushed himself to his feet, clutching his gut and staring at Emily with new eyes. "But you didn't give me that chance." Emily's voice turned cold. "You thought I was an easy target. You were wrong." "Look, I didn't know," Brad started. "Of course you didn't. But now you have a choice." Emily stepped closer. Despite the difference in height, Brad felt small and exposed in front of her. "Either you keep your word, leave me alone and apologize in front of everyone, or—" she shrugged lightly, "or tomorrow I'll show everyone what I can really do, with witnesses, on video. How do you think your football buddies will react when they see their captain flattened by a girl half his size in 30 seconds? Brad realized he was trapped. His reputation, his status at school, everything he'd built, it all hung by a thread. "All right," he rasped. "All right, I'll do it. Smart boy." Emily picked up her jacket and started to walk away. "Oh, and Brad," she turned back to look at him, "if you or your friends so much as look at me or any other student here the wrong way, I'll know. And then our next conversation will be very different." She walked away, leaving Brad standing alone in the empty parking lot. He clutched his stomach and couldn't believe what had just happened. Half an hour ago, he'd been the king of the school. Now. The next morning, the whole school was buzzing. Brad Thompson, the terror of freshmen, the untouchable leader of the seniors, walked up to Emily in the hallway and, loud enough for everyone to hear, apologized for what had happened in the cafeteria. "I'm sorry, Emily," he said, his voice completely sincere. "What I did yesterday was wrong. I was a complete jerk." Students around them stood with their mouths hanging open. Brad Thompson apologizing to the new girl? "Thank you, Brad," Emily said calmly. "I accept your apology." From that day on, the atmosphere at school changed completely. Brad and his friends didn't just leave Emily alone, they seemed to become her invisible protectors. When any of the younger kids tried to pick on someone else, a single look from Brad was enough to make them back down. But the most surprising thing happened a week later. A group of girls approached Emily, led by Jessica Martin, one of the most popular students in school. "Emily," Jessica began hesitantly, "we heard, there are rumors." "Is it true that you really know how to fight?" "Why do you want to know?" Emily asked. "Well, we have a problem. Some guys from another school keep harassing us after classes. The teachers can't do anything because it's off school grounds. And if we tell our parents, they'll just forbid us from going out." Emily looked closely at the girls. She could see the fear and desperation in their eyes. "Tell me more," she said softly. It turned out that a group of high school boys from West Side had been waiting for the Lincoln High girls at the bus stop every day. They never actually hurt them physically, but their harassment was getting bolder and more aggressive. Just yesterday, one of them had tried to grab Jessica's hand, and when she pulled away, he threatened her. "Next time, you won't be able to run." "How many of them are there?" Emily asked. "5," one of the girls replied. "And they're all healthy, I suppose? They're about 17 or 18. And you girls?" "There's 4 of us usually. We go together." Emily thought for a moment. 5 against 1 wasn't great odds, even for her, but the girls needed help, and the teachers and parents couldn't really do much in this situation. "All right," she said finally. "After school today, go to the bus stop as usual. I'll be there." "What are you going to do?" Jessica asked, a tremor in her voice. "We'll see what the situation calls for," Emily answered calmly. At 3:45 p.m., Emily took her position at the bus stop. She sat on the bench, pretending to read a book, but her eyes never left the area. Jessica and her friends arrived a few minutes later, standing a little apart, exchanging nervous glances. The West Side boys showed up right on schedule. 5 big teenage boys in athletic gear, with cocky faces and arrogant swagger. Their leader, a tall blonde with a tattoo on his neck, immediately headed for the girls. "Well, well, look who we have here," he said loudly. "Our favorite princesses from Lincoln." "Leave us alone, Travis." Jessica tried to sound brave. "Are we bothering you?" he sneered. "We're just having a little chat." He grinned. "By the way, yesterday you ran off too quickly. Didn't even give me a chance to get to know you better." He reached out to touch Jessica's cheek. She shrank back, but one of his friends stepped behind her, cutting off her escape. "Don't be scared, sweetheart, I don't bite," he said mockingly. That was when Emily stepped in. "Excuse me," she said, walking up to the group. "Could you move, please? The bus will be here soon, and you're blocking the way." Travis turned to her, his eyes narrowing as he sized her up. "And who the hell are you?" "I'm a student at Lincoln, and these girls are my friends." "I see," he scoffed. "Well, why don't you run along? We're having a little chat with your friends here." "I'm afraid that's not going to happen," Emily said evenly. "They don't want to talk to you." Travis took a step closer to Emily. He was nearly 2 meters tall, and next to him, she looked tiny. "Listen, little girl," he growled, "stay out of this, or you'll get what's coming to you." "And what exactly will I get?" Emily asked in a calm, steady voice. The other boys burst out laughing. They thought it was hilarious that this small, fragile-looking girl wasn't scared of their leader. "You know what?" Travis turned to his friends. "I like this one. She's got some fire. Maybe we should take her with us." One of the boys, a stocky brunette with gold teeth, moved behind Emily. "Good idea, Trav. It's been a while since we had some fresh company." He reached out to grab her shoulders. That was his mistake. Emily didn't even turn around. In a single, fluid motion, she snapped her left elbow back, aiming for his solar plexus. The blow was short, but powerful. The boy doubled over, gasping for breath, and fell to his knees. "What the—" Travis started, but he didn't get to finish. Emily turned to face him, and something in her eyes stopped him cold. It was the gaze of a predator, cold, calculating, completely fearless. "You have 2 minutes to get out of here," she said quietly. "That's the only warning you'll get." Travis couldn't believe what he was hearing. Some girl, barely 5'5", was threatening him and his boys. "You've lost your mind," he roared. "I'll crush you with one hand." He didn't finish. Emily moved so fast, he didn't even have time to react. One moment she was 2 meters away. The next, her fist slammed into his liver with enough force to make his insides twist up in agony. He doubled over, gasping for air, and then she kneed him in the face. His nose crunched under the impact, and blood poured from his nostrils. Travis fell onto his back, struggling not to pass out. The entire attack took less than 3 seconds. The other 3 boys stood frozen, stunned. Their leader, the one they'd always seen as invincible, lay on the ground in a pool of his own blood. "Who's next?" Emily asked, turning to them. No one moved. They'd seen what she did to Travis, and they understood. This girl wasn't joking. Wise choice, Emily said, nodding. Now take your friend and leave. And if I ever see any of you near these girls again, the conversation will be very different. The boys lifted the groaning Travis and hurried away. The one she'd elbowed first was still on his knees, clutching his stomach. You too, Emily told him. Get out of here. When the bullies finally disappeared from sight, Jessica and her friends hurried over to Emily. Their eyes were wide with a mix of awe and relief. That was incredible, Jessica gasped. How do you know how to do that? It's a long story, Emily shrugged. The important thing is, they won't bother you anymore. What if they come back? One of the girls asked, her voice still trembling. They won't, Emily said. Guys like Travis only understand strength. Today, he learned a lesson he won't forget anytime soon. Just then, the bus arrived at the stop. The girls climbed aboard, still talking in excited whispers about what had just happened. Emily stayed behind, waiting for the next bus. By the time she finally got home, her mother was already preparing dinner. How was school today? Sarah asked, as usual. Better, Emily replied with a small smile. Much better. Her mother studied her face closely. Something had shifted in Emily these past few days. She seemed more confident, more at ease. The constant tension that had been in her movements since the first day at her new school was gone. Did you make some new friends? Sarah asked carefully. Yeah, Emily said. Turns out there are some pretty good kids here. I'm glad to hear that. Emily went up to her room and sat down at her desk. She opened her textbook, but her mind was far from her homework. Today had changed everything for her at this new school. She no longer needed to hide or pretend to be weak and defenseless. She could finally be herself. The next day, everyone at school had heard about what happened at the bus stop. The story grew with every retelling, but the heart of it remained the same. The new girl from Detroit had taken down 5 senior boys from Westside, all by herself. Students from every grade came up to Emily. Some just wanted to say hi. Others asked her how to stand up for themselves. A few girls wondered if she could show them some self-defense moves. Of course, Emily agreed. I think that would be really useful. She made arrangements with the wrestling team's coach to use the gym after school. Within a week, she had a group of about 20 students, mostly girls, but a few boys too. Emily taught them the basics of self-defense, how to hold their hands, where to aim when they had to strike, how to break free from a grab. She explained that in a fight, strength wasn't as important as technique and the ability to stay in control. Remember, she told her students, the best fight is the one you avoid. But if you can't avoid it, you strike first, you strike hard, and you finish it quickly. The classes quickly became popular, not just with the students, but with the teachers too. Even the school principal, Mr. Anderson, took notice. One afternoon, he called Emily into his office. Emily, he said, what you're doing is really important. These days, kids need to know how to protect themselves. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, Emily replied. I spoke to your mother, he continued. She told me about what you accomplished back in Detroit. Why did you keep your skills a secret? Emily paused. I thought it would be easier, she admitted. I thought I could just live a normal life. And how's that working out? Mr. Anderson asked gently. You know what I realized? Emily said thoughtfully. Hiding who you really are isn't living. It's just existing. Real life starts when you stop being afraid to be yourself. Mr. Anderson smiled. Wise words for a 16-year-old. I had to grow up fast, Emily said simply. About a month after the incident with the West Side boys, something else happened that firmly cemented Emily's reputation at the school. A big mixed martial arts federation came to town to put on an exhibition and scout for young talent. The event was held at the local sports center, and many of Lincoln High's students went to watch. Emily didn't plan on participating. She just went to watch with Jessica and the others. But when the organizers announced an open ring for anyone who wanted to spar, the crowd of students started chanting her name. Emily! 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 Mike Rotner, a former professional fighter and one of the event's organizers, noticed the commotion. What's going on? He asked. The kids want one of the students to fight, someone explained. They say she's a state champion. Really? How old is she? Rotner asked, intrigued. 16, came the answer. Rotner frowned. Too young for a real fight, but maybe we can set up a light sparring match with one of our girls. He approached the crowd. So, where's this champion of yours? Jessica nudged Emily forward. Here she is! Rotner looked Emily up and down, his gaze skeptical. She was small, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt. She didn't look like a fighter. You really a state champion? He asked. I was, Emily said. In Michigan. What weight class? 57 kilos. All right, we've got a girl about your size. Want to do a light sparring match? No hits to the head, and you'll be wearing protective gear. Emily looked at her classmates. In their eyes, she saw hope and excitement. They believed in her, and she couldn't let them down. All right, she said. A few minutes later, Emily was in the center of the ring, wearing a protective helmet and gloves. Her opponent was Kelly Rose, a 20-year-old up-and-coming professional fighter with 4 amateur fights under her belt. Don't worry, kid, Kelly said during their warm-up. This is just an exhibition. Emily just nodded. She felt completely at home. The smell of sweat and leather, the bright lights, the roar of the crowd. It was all so familiar. The referee gave the signal to begin. Kelly started carefully, feeling Emily out. She threw a few light jabs to test her reaction. Emily calmly blocked or dodged them, not rushing to attack. Decent defense, Kelly thought. She decided to turn it up a notch. She launched a 3-strike combo, a left jab, a right cross, and a kick to Emily's side. Her technique was perfect, her speed impressive. But Emily was ready. She dodged the first 2 punches and caught the kick, pulling Kelly off balance and sweeping her legs out from under her. Kelly crashed to the mat, stunned. Emily immediately followed her down, taking the fight to the ground. Kelly was strong on the mat, but Emily was stronger. With a few quick transitions, she had Kelly locked in a chokehold. Kelly tried to escape, but Emily's grip was tight and controlled. She had no choice but to tap out. The gym exploded with applause. The Lincoln High students shouted and whistled, not believing what they'd just seen. Their classmate had beaten a professional fighter. Mike Rotner approached the ring, a look of surprise on his face. Where did you train? He asked Emily. In Detroit, at Master Johnson's gym, she replied. Johnson? I know him. He's a great coach. Rotner looked thoughtful for a moment. Listen, would you be interested in pursuing this seriously? You've got the talent to achieve something big. Emily looked over at her classmates, their eyes wide with admiration and excitement. Her mother was in the crowd too, smiling proudly. Thanks for the offer, Emily said with a small smile. But right now, I just want to be a high school student. There are more important things I need to take care of here. After that exhibition match, Emily's fame spread far beyond the school. Local newspapers wrote about her, and a short feature aired on regional TV. But for Emily, none of that was what mattered most. What mattered was that she had finally found her place. She wasn't just the new girl anymore, struggling to fit in. She had become a leader, someone others looked up to. Her self-defense classes were now attended by more than 50 people. The girls in her class had grown more confident, and even the boys treated her with genuine respect. Even Brad Thompson had changed. He was no longer the school's biggest bully. In fact, he'd started helping the younger students. One day, he approached Emily after a training session. You know, he said, awkwardly rubbing the back of his neck, I just wanted to say, thank you. For what? Emily asked. For stopping me that day. I was a real jerk. If you hadn't put me in my place, I'd probably be even worse now. Emily smiled. We all make mistakes, Brad. The important thing is to learn from them. I'm trying, Brad said earnestly. And you know, if you ever need any help, you can count on me. It was a turning point, not just for Brad, but for the entire school. The atmosphere changed completely. Bullying disappeared. There was no more picking on the new kids. Instead, students started helping each other, building each other up. But the true test of everything they'd built was still ahead. At the beginning of November, the school was shaken by some shocking news. Travis Miller, the same bully Emily had taken down at the bus stop, had been arrested for assaulting a girl from another district. This time, he'd gone too far. He was facing real prison time, but Travis came from a powerful family. His father, a wealthy businessman, hired the best lawyers money could buy. They started working to get the charges against his son dropped. One of their strategies was to accuse Emily of provoking the incident back in October. 3 months after Travis's arrest, his lawyers filed a countersuit. They claimed that Emily's attack on Travis had pushed him to further acts of aggression. They wanted her held accountable as a co-conspirator. The case quickly became a media sensation. Local news outlets split into two camps. Some called Emily a hero, others said she'd gone too far. "Can a 16-year-old girl really be that dangerous?" asked one newspaper. "Self-defense or assault? Where's the line?" wondered a local TV channel. Emily suddenly found herself in the middle of a storm. For several days, reporters camped outside their house, but soon the frenzy died down. Her mother was worried, but she stayed strong. "Maybe we should leave," Sarah suggested one night as they cleaned up dinner. "Start over somewhere else." "No," Emily said firmly. "I'm not going anywhere. I didn't do anything wrong." "But this case," her mother started. "This case will reveal the truth," Emily said calmly, "and the truth is on our side." The trial was set for 2 months later. Travis's lawyers tried to paint Emily as a violent girl with serious mental issues, someone who used her fighting skills to hurt innocent people. But they had overlooked one crucial fact. Emily had witnesses. On the day of the trial, the courtroom was packed. Students from Lincoln High came to support her, along with teachers and parents. Jessica and her friends sat in the front row, silently cheering her on. Travis's lawyer opened with an emotional speech, painting his client as a boy who'd gotten caught up in a normal teenage encounter that spiraled out of control. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said, "this is the story of a simple attempt at teenage flirtation that turned into a savage beating. My client was merely trying to get to know some girls like any boy his age might—" "Objection!" Emily's lawyer interrupted. "Your Honor, Mr. Miller is not the defendant here." "Sustained," the judge said. "Watch your phrasing, counselor." Travis's lawyer continued, but when it came time for witness testimony, the narrative started to crack. Jessica Martin was the first to take the stand. "Tell the court what happened that day at the bus stop," the prosecutor prompted her gently. "Travis Miller and his friends had been harassing us for weeks," Jessica said, her voice shaking. "They said disgusting things. They tried to touch us. That day, Travis tried to grab my face. When I pulled away, one of his friends stood behind me so I couldn't run." "And then what happened?" "Emily stepped in," Jessica said, gaining strength. "She told them to leave us alone. But they started threatening her too." "Who attacked first?" the prosecutor asked. "One of Travis's friends grabbed Emily from behind," Jessica said firmly. "She defended herself." Travis's lawyer tried to undermine Jessica's testimony, but she held her ground. Other girls, along with a few random bystanders who'd witnessed the incident, all testified to the same thing. Emily had acted in defense of herself and the other girls. But the most powerful testimony came from Emily herself. "Miss Harris," the prosecutor said, addressing her gently, "could you tell the court about your history with sports?" Emily stood up, shoulders squared, and began to speak. She told them about how she'd started training in martial arts after she herself had been bullied at school, about the years of discipline, the competitions she had won, and how her training had taught her not just to fight, but to control her aggression. "My coach always said," she continued, "that real strength isn't about causing pain. It's about knowing when to stop. That day at the bus stop, I could have seriously hurt those boys, but I used the minimum force necessary to stop them." "And what did you feel in that moment?" the prosecutor asked. "Responsibility," Emily said without hesitation. "For the girls they were trying to hurt, for myself, and for showing them that what they were doing was wrong." Travis's lawyer tried to shake her during cross-examination, but Emily stayed calm and honest. She didn't make excuses or downplay what had happened. You admit you struck my client? He pressed. Yes, Emily said. I admit it. And that it was a strong blow? Strong enough to stop him, she answered simply. Did you consider that you might seriously injure him? I had full control over the strength of the blow, Emily said. My coach taught me how to measure my force according to the situation. But you could have just run away, couldn't you? The lawyer asked, leaning forward. Emily met his gaze with a steady, unwavering look. And what about those girls? Were they supposed to run too? For how long? Someone had to stop your client, and I did. The courtroom erupted in applause, but the judge quickly called for order. The final statements were a formality. The prosecutor's arguments were clear and compelling. Emily had acted within the law to defend herself and others. The jury needed only 20 minutes to reach a verdict. The decision was unanimous, not guilty on all counts. When the judge read the verdict, the room filled with applause again. Emily hugged her mother, who was crying tears of relief and pride. Thank you for believing in me, Emily said to her classmates, who had stayed until the very end to support her. We always believed in you, Jessica said with a smile. You taught us the most important lesson, not to be afraid, to be strong. After the trial, life began to return to normal. The media lost interest, and the reporters stopped crowding outside their house. But the changes that Emily had started didn't fade away. Her self-defense classes were officially added to the school's physical education program. The administration gave her a dedicated space and the equipment she needed. Professional instructors joined in to help, but Emily remained the main coach. She taught more than just fighting techniques. She taught the psychology of self-defense, how to recognize a dangerous situation, how to avoid conflict, how to help others without putting yourself at unnecessary risk. Remember, she would tell her students, strength isn't just physical skills. Real strength is confidence in yourself, standing up for what's right, and being ready to protect the vulnerable. Her words resonated not only with the students but also with the adults. Parents of the kids, teachers, and even some people from the community started attending the classes. Emily's classes became a place where people of all ages learned how to be brave, how to stand tall in the face of fear. It was more than self-defense. It was about building a community. Emily's quiet courage and fierce determination had started something bigger than she ever imagined. Emily had become a symbol that even the most ordinary person could change the world around them. But the most important change happened within her. Emily no longer tried to hide her true self. She understood that accepting who she was the first step to making the world a better place. One evening, as she was walking home after another training session, a stranger approached her. Emily immediately tensed, ready to defend herself. Emily Harris? He asked. Yes, she said cautiously. My name is Dan White. I'm the father of one of the girls you protected from those bullies. Emily relaxed a little. Oh, I see. How's your daughter doing? She's great. And you know why? Because she's been coming to your classes. She's become a different person, confident, strong, and ready to stand up for herself. He paused, searching for the right words. I just wanted to say thank you. Not just for protecting her that day, but for teaching her to protect herself. That's the greatest gift you could give a child. There's no need to thank me, Emily replied. I'm just doing what I believe is right. You know what? He said quietly. It's people like you who make the world a better place. When Emily got home, her mother was already asleep. She quietly slipped into her room and sat by the window, looking up at the starry sky. A year ago, she had been a frightened girl, moving to a new town, hoping to go unnoticed. Today, she was a leader, a teacher, a protector, someone she had always been meant to be. It hadn't been easy. She had faced prejudice, conquered her fears, and weathered a very public scandal. But every challenge only made her stronger. Emily understood one essential truth. You can't hide from your destiny. You can try to be someone else, to fit into the expectations of others, but sooner or later, your true nature will come out. And when that happens, you have to be ready to take responsibility for your strength. The next day at school, Emily was in for a surprise. Principal Anderson called her to his office where members of the city council, the parents' committee, and the local press were gathered. "Emily," the principal said solemnly, "the city council has decided to award you an honorary medal for courage and service to the community. You're the youngest person in our town's history to receive this award." Emily was stunned. She had never imagined her actions would be recognized in such a way. "Thank you," she said, accepting the beautiful medal from the mayor's hands. "But I want to share this award with everyone who stood by me, with my students who found the strength to change, with my classmates who believed in me, with the teachers who helped me grow." Her speech was short but deeply sincere. She spoke about how true strength didn't come from physical skills, but from the willingness to stand up for the truth, to help the weak, and to never be afraid to be yourself. "Each of us can be a hero," she concluded. "We just have to find the courage to take that first step." In her final year at Lincoln High, Emily became the student council president. She used that position to completely dismantle the last remnants of the school's hierarchy of power and intimidation. She helped establish an honor court, a body that resolved conflicts between students through reconciliation and understanding rather than punishment. "The goal isn't to punish the bully," Emily explained to those learning how the honor court worked. "It's to help him understand why his behavior was wrong and to change it." The system worked. The number of serious conflicts at the school dropped to nearly zero. After the award ceremony, a reporter from the local newspaper approached Emily. "What are you planning to do next? I hear a lot of sports federations are offering you professional contracts." "For now, I just want to finish high school," Emily replied with a quiet smile. "And maybe someday I'll become a coach. I want to help other kids find their strength, the way my coach helped me." "Do you regret not hiding your skills from the start?" the reporter asked. Emily paused to think. "You know, I spent a long time trying to be someone I wasn't. I thought it would be easier that way. But it turned out to be the opposite. When you hide your true self, you're not just lying to others, you're lying to yourself. And sooner or later, that only causes problems." "So you believe we should always be honest with ourselves?" the reporter pressed. "Yes," Emily said firmly. "Every person is born with certain talents, abilities, and a purpose. Our job isn't to hide them. It's to use them for good. Of course, that requires responsibility, but there's no real strength without responsibility." The interview was published on the front page of the paper and quickly spread across the internet. Emily became a symbol for countless teens who were afraid to show their true abilities. Letters started pouring in from all over the country. Kids shared their struggles, asked for advice, and told her how her story had inspired them to find their own strength. One letter touched Emily deeply. It was from a 14-year-old girl in Texas. "Dear Emily, my name is Maria," it read. "I want to tell you my story. I've always been chubby and awkward. At school, they teased me all the time, and I would just cry and run away. But after I read about you, I decided to sign up for karate. At first it was really hard, but I didn't give up. And last week, something amazing happened. When the older boys tried to tease me again, I didn't cry. I looked them in the eyes and said, 'Leave me alone.' And you know what? They did. Thank you for showing me that anyone can be strong. Your grateful fan, Maria." Reading letters like that, Emily knew she had found her true calling. She wanted to help kids find their inner strength, to teach them not to be afraid to be themselves. 6 more months passed. Emily was now in her final year, preparing to apply to college. She chose to major in psychology with a specialization in sports medicine. She wanted to become a sports psychologist and work with young athletes. But fate had one more test in store for her. One evening, as Emily was walking home after training, a stranger approached her. She immediately sensed danger. He was clearly drunk and aggressive. "So you're the little bitch who messed up my son," he growled. Emily knew instantly who he was. Standing before her was Mr. Miller, Travis Miller's father, the same Travis who was now serving time in juvenile detention for his crimes. "Mr. Miller," she said, stepping slowly toward the well-lit part of the street. Your son made his own choices. He's responsible for what happened. My boy was a good kid until he met you, Miller sneered. He took a step closer, his fists clenching. Emily assessed the situation calmly. The man was huge, almost 2 meters tall, well over 100 kilos, but his balance was off, his movements sloppy from the alcohol. Calm down, she said firmly. Leave before I call the police. Police? He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. First, I'll show you what it's like to be weak. He lunged at her, reaching for her shoulders. Emily was ready. She slipped out of his grasp and drove a short, precise punch into his solar plexus. The alcohol dulled his reflexes, and he couldn't react fast enough. He doubled over, gasping for air, and tried to attack her again. This time, Emily knew she had to end it quickly. One sharp blow to the jaw, and the man crumpled to the pavement, unconscious. She immediately pulled out her phone and called the police. Within minutes, a patrol car and an ambulance arrived. When they got there, Miller was still out cold. The paramedics diagnosed a mild concussion but no serious injuries. Another self-defense case? The detective asked, already familiar with Emily from the previous incident. He attacked me on the street, Emily said calmly. I defended myself. I understand, the detective said. Any witnesses? Emily looked around. Luckily, the incident had happened near a store, and a security camera had caught the whole thing. The footage made everything crystal clear. Emily was defending herself from a violent attacker. The case didn't even make it to court. The video showed beyond doubt who the real aggressor was. Mr. Miller was held responsible for the assault and for making threats. Emily was officially recognized as having acted in lawful self-defense. But the incident made her think. She realized that her reputation might not only attract admirers, but also those who wanted to test her strength or take revenge for past defeats. That evening over dinner, she said to her mother, Mom, I think we need to have a serious talk. About what, sweetheart? Sarah asked, setting down her fork. About what happened today, and about what might happen in the future. Emily told her mother everything, her fears and her worries, how she was concerned not just for herself, but for her friends, her students, and everyone close to her. Are you afraid? Sarah asked quietly. No, I'm not afraid, Emily said steadily, but I'm worried. What if next time it's not just one drunk man, but a whole group? Sarah was silent for a long moment, thinking carefully. You know what, Em? She said finally. I'm proud of you, not just because you can fight, but because you think about others, because you're willing to take responsibility for their safety. But what should I do? Emily asked softly. Exactly what you've always done, Sarah said with a gentle smile. Be yourself. Protect those who need protection, and never let fear control your life. The next day at school, everyone was talking about what had happened. The story spread quickly around town. Emily had defended herself again. Students from every grade came up to her, offering their support and encouragement. The local newspaper ran an article about the problem of school safety, using Emily's story as a powerful example. But most importantly, the incident didn't break her spirit. It only strengthened her resolve to keep helping other kids. Her self-defense program expanded to other schools in the district. Emily traveled regularly, giving seminars and sharing her experience with other trainers. Most importantly, the kids themselves began to change. They grew braver, more confident, ready to stand up for themselves and for each other. Incidents of bullying dropped dramatically. You know what your greatest victory is? Jessica asked her one day. What? Emily replied. You showed all of us that you can be strong and kind at the same time. That real strength isn't about hurting the weak. It's about protecting them. In her final year, Emily's leadership only grew. As student council president, she used her influence to dismantle the last remnants of the old fear-based hierarchy. The honor court she helped create became a model of fairness and empathy. No one was punished for the sake of punishment. It was about understanding, growth, and second chances. The goal isn't to punish the bully, Emily explained to everyone, but to help him understand why what he did was wrong, and to change. And it worked. Serious conflicts in the school dropped to almost zero. Finally, graduation day arrived. Emily stood on stage in her cap and gown, diploma in hand. She wasn't just the top student academically, she had become a leader, a voice for change. "Dear graduates," she began her speech, her voice clear and calm. "4 years ago, I came to this school as a scared girl who just wanted to be invisible. I thought if I stayed quiet and small, I could avoid problems." The auditorium was completely silent, hanging on her every word. "But life taught me something different," she said with a gentle smile. "Problems find us whether we hide or not. And then we have a choice, to give up or to fight." She paused, looking out at the familiar faces of her friends and teachers. "I chose to fight. Not because I love to fight, but because there were people around me who needed to be protected. And you know what? It didn't just change their lives, it changed mine too." The applause interrupted her briefly, but she continued with quiet determination. "Today, we all go our separate ways. Some to college, some to work, some to the military. But remember, wherever you are, always be yourself. Don't hide your talents. Don't be afraid to be strong. The world needs people who will stand up for truth and justice." She raised her diploma above her head, her eyes shining with certainty. "And one more thing, if you ever see someone being hurt, don't walk away. Lend a hand. Be the change you want to see in the world." The auditorium erupted in applause. It was a standing ovation. Her classmates, teachers, and parents all cheered for her. When the ceremony ended, Brad Thompson came over to her. Once the school's biggest bully, he was now about to enter college to study social work. "Emily," he said awkwardly, "I just wanted to say thank you again." "For what?" she asked with a small smile. For not breaking my nose that day," he laughed. "Even though I deserved it, but more than that, for showing me there was another way. If it weren't for that lesson, I might have turned out to be someone very different." "We all make mistakes, Brad," Emily said gently. "The important thing is to learn from them." "You know," Brad said thoughtfully, "I've been thinking. Maybe everything happens for a reason. Maybe you came to our school because we needed you." Emily thought about that. Maybe he was right. Maybe her move to Maplewood had never been an accident. That night, at home, Emily sat in her room, packing her things. Tomorrow, she was leaving for Chicago, or maybe New York. She hadn't decided yet. College would be a new life, with new challenges and new opportunities. But she was no longer afraid of change. 4 years at Lincoln High had taught her the most important lesson of all. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're facing. What matters is who you are inside. Her mother peeked into the room. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" she asked softly. "Good," Emily said with a quiet smile. "I'm thinking about the future." "And what do you see?" "I see a lot of work, a lot of kids who need help, a lot of chances to make the world a better place," Emily said, her voice steady. "I'm proud of you," her mother said. "And I'm proud that you're my mom," Emily replied, hugging her tight. "Thank you for always believing in me." They held each other for a long moment, a silent bond of love and gratitude. The next morning, half the town came to see Emily off. At the station, her students, classmates, teachers, and even people she barely knew stood together, waiting to say goodbye. "Don't forget us," Jessica said through her tears. "How could I ever forget you?" Emily said with a warm smile. "You'll always be in my heart." As the train pulled away, Emily watched the town she'd come to love fade into the distance. This was the place where she had found herself, where she had learned her purpose. But ahead lay a new chapter, and Emily was ready for it. At college, she studied psychology, focusing on working with teenagers. She also coached the university's martial arts team and ran self-defense classes for female students. The story of the girl who changed her school spread far and wide. Books were written about her, documentaries filmed. But for Emily, It was all just the beginning. After college, she spent a few years working as a psychologist in youth centers, gaining experience and learning everything she could. Then, at the age of 26, she opened her own center for developing young leaders. She started small, a single office, a handful of students, but soon it grew. Teenagers from nearby towns came to train with her, kids who had faced bullying, kids who were afraid to stand up for themselves, kids who wanted to change the world around them. "Remember," Emily told them, her voice calm and strong, "each of you was born for something great. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Be yourself, fight for what's right, and never give up." Her center became one of the most respected in the region. Some of her graduates returned to their own communities to start similar programs. Slowly but surely, a network of allies grew. Within a few years, Emily was recognized as one of the leading experts in her state on fighting school bullying. She was invited to speak at conferences, consult with school districts, and help design educational programs. But she never forgot where it all began. Every year on her graduation anniversary, she returned to Maplewood. She met with old friends, ran workshops for new generations of students. "You know what's amazing?" said the 30-year-old Emily in an interview with the local paper. "I used to think moving to that small town was the end of everything, but it turned out to be the beginning." Because there, in that small town, she discovered who she wanted to be. Years went by. Emily became not just a successful psychologist and coach, but an example to thousands of children in her region. A symbol that anyone can change their life and the lives of those around them if they find the courage to be themselves. And in the small town of Maplewood, in the gym at Lincoln High, there was a photograph of a slender girl with determined eyes. Beneath it, a plaque read, "Emily Harris, class of 2013. She taught us that true strength lies in the willingness to protect others." Every new generation of students who looked at that photograph learned the story of how one girl changed an entire world, and they understood the most important lesson of all. Each of us can be a hero. All it takes is the courage to take that first step. The story ended exactly where it was meant to end. Not with loud fanfare, but with a quiet certainty that the world was just a little bit better because one person found the strength not to hide, but to shine.